Lila Coleman stepped into the Sapphire Crown Resort's dazzling Miami lobby, her kids Maya and Ethan beaming with vacation excitement. Manager Vincent Harrow scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain, claiming their reservation was a mistake. Lila, unflinched, dialed her phone. Minutes later, Vincent's face paled. He was fired. Lila had bought the resort chain. The staff froze, but Vincent's sly grin unnerved her. What was he planning? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe for more gripping stories. Why wasn't Vincent scared? Lila Coleman sank into the plush leather couch of the Sapphire Crown Resort's penthouse suite, the Miami skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows 60 stories up. Her kids, Maya and Ethan, sprawled on the carpet, scrolling through, their phones, their laughter echoing off marble walls. The air smelled of jasmine from a vase of fresh flowers, and for a moment, Lila let herself believe she'd won. Firing Vincent Harrow, that smug hotel manager who'd humiliated them in the lobby, felt like justice. Her purchase of the entire resort chain, a $3 billion deal sealed with a single phone call, had turned his sneer into a stammer. She'd built her cybersecurity empire, Coleman Tech, from a cramped apartment in Atlanta, and now, at 42, she was a billionaire who could buy out anyone who dared to underestimate her. But as she sipped a glass of chilled, sparkling water, a nagging unease lingered. Vincent's sly grin as he left the lobby, unfazed by his termination, gnawed at her. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on Maya's excited chatter about the resort's infinity pool. This was their vacation, a rare break from boardrooms and deadlines, and she wouldn't let a bitter man ruin it. Yet, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the suite, her phone buzzed with a notification that made her stomach twist. A local news outlet, Miami Herald Now, had just published a headline: "Billionaire's fortune tied to government hacking scandal." Her name was plastered across it, alongside a grainy photo of her from the lobby, her face tense as she'd confronted Vincent. The article claimed Coleman Tech had siphoned funds by breaching federal servers, painting her as a criminal mastermind who'd conned her way to wealth. Lila's pulse quickened, her fingers trembling as she scrolled through. The lies. The accusations were baseless, but the damage was instant. Social media exploded. Hashtags like Lila the Liar trending on X. Strangers called her a fraud, a thief, words laced with racial venom she'd heard too many times before. Downstairs in the resort's bustling atrium, guests whispered as they passed her security team, their eyes darting with suspicion. A white couple in designer sunglasses muttered loudly about people like her ruining the place, their words slicing through the hum of chatter. Even the staff, who'd been professional hours ago, now avoided eye contact, their smiles replaced with curt nods. Maya, 16 and fiercely perceptive, caught the shift, her brow furrowing as she glanced at Lila. Ethan, 14, kept his head down, but his grip on his phone tightened. Lila's chest burned with anger, not just at the lies, but at the familiar sting of being judged for her skin. She'd faced this before, from skeptical investors to dismissive competitors, but this was different. This was personal, a calculated strike to tear down everything she'd built. She suspected Vincent's hand immediately. His connections ran deep, from Miami's elite to media insiders, and his humiliation in the lobby gave him motive. Lila didn't waste time. She called her PR team, demanding a counter-strategy, and drove 10 miles across Miami's neon-lit streets to the Herald's downtown office, her black SUV cutting through humid 90-degree air. The editor, a wiry man named Greg Palmer, squirmed under her gaze as she presented server logs proving Coleman Tech's clean record. Her voice was calm, but razor-sharp, dismantling the article's claims point by point. Palmer, sweating in his glass-walled office, admitted the story came from an anonymous tip with forged documents. By midnight, the article was retracted, replaced with a terse apology buried on the website's third page. Lila returned to the penthouse, exhausted but triumphant, believing she'd stopped the bleeding. The kids were asleep, their faces peaceful under the suite's soft lighting, and she allowed herself a moment of relief. She'd faced smears before and come out stronger. This was just another hurdle, cleared with the precision she'd honed over 20 years in tech. But as she sank into bed, her phone lit up with an email from her bank. Her accounts, personal and corporate, holding over $2 billion, were frozen, flagged for suspicious activity under a city investigation. The email cited a counselor, Raymond Delgado, as the authority behind the order. Lila's breath caught, her mind racing back to Vincent's grin. Delgado was a known power player in Miami, with a history of targeting Black-owned businesses under the guise of public safety. She Googled his name, finding photos of him golfing with Vincent at a charity event last year, their smiles smug under the Florida sun. The pieces clicked together. Vincent hadn't just leaked a story, he'd weaponized the city's systems against her, exploiting stereotypes that painted her as a threat before she could even defend herself. Her victory over the article felt hollow now, a fleeting high before a deeper plunge. The penthouse, once a sanctuary, seemed to close in, its luxury mocking her sudden vulnerability. She couldn't access her funds to fight back, pay her team, or even leave the resort. Her kids' safety, her company's future, her very name were under siege, and Vincent's shadow loomed larger than she'd imagined. Lila stood, pacing the hardwood floor, her reflection sharp in the dark windows. She'd fought too hard to let this break her, but the counselor's involvement meant Vincent's reach extended into corridors of power she couldn't yet touch. Her mind churned, already planning her next move, but a chill settled in her bones. If Vincent could freeze her accounts overnight, what else was he capable of? The city outside glittered, oblivious to the storm gathering around her, and Lila knew this was only the beginning. She glanced at her sleeping kids, their trust in her absolute, and felt a surge of resolve. Vincent thought he could bury her, but he'd underestimated her strength, her smarts, her fire. She'd expose him no matter the cost. But the path ahead promised battles fiercer than she'd faced in that lobby. The retraction had been a small win, a flicker of light in a growing darkness, and now, with her accounts locked and Delgado's name tied to Vincent's, the real fight was just starting. How deep did this conspiracy run? Lila Coleman stood in the Sapphire Crown Resort's penthouse, the Miami dawn painting the skyline in hues of pink and gold 30 stories below. Her reflection in the towering windows showed a woman unbroken but weary, her braids pulled tight, eyes burning with defiance. The frozen bank accounts, a gut punch from Vincent Harrow's ally, counselor Raymond Delgado, had trapped her family in this gilded cage. $2 billion, her life's work, locked away by a racist system that saw her as a threat before a titan. Maya and Ethan, sprawled on velvet armchairs, sensed the shift, their usual banter replaced by tense glances. Downstairs, the resort's opulent atrium, with its crystal chandeliers and bubbling fountains, had turned hostile. Staff, once polished and deferential, now treated Lila's family like intruders. A concierge, a young white woman with a tight ponytail, refused room service, claiming orders from management. Her voice clipped, eyes avoiding Lila's. A bellhop delivering towels muttered about troublemakers under his breath, loud enough for Ethan to hear. Guests were worse. A middle-aged man in a polo shirt sipping a cocktail by the indoor E. Waterfall stared openly, whispering to his wife about those people who bought their way in. The words stung, each one a reminder of Vincent's lobby humiliation, now amplified by his smear campaign. Maya, clutching her phone, showed Lila a trending X post, a cartoon of a black woman in a crown labeled Lila the Crook with thousands of likes. Ethan, usually glued to his games, pushed his tablet away, his jaw tight. Lila's heart ached, not just for herself, but for her kids, forced to endure this venom at 16 and 14. She'd bought the resort to reclaim their dignity, but Vincent's lies had poisoned even this victory. The penthouse, with its silk drapes and mahogany bar, felt like a prison, its luxury mocking their isolation. Lila tried to book flights to Atlanta, but without funds they were stuck, 300 miles from home. The resort's amenities, from the rooftop pool to the spa, were off limits. Staff citing maintenance or private events whenever, Lila inquired. A security guard, broad-shouldered and stone-faced, blocked their path to the gym, claiming safety concerns, his hand resting on his radio. Lila recognized the pattern. Systemic exclusion. Dressed up as policy. The same racism. She'd fought in boardrooms, now weaponizing her own property against her. She refused to crumble. Her cybersecurity expertise, honed over 2 decades, was her weapon. Late at night, while the kids slept, Lila sat at the suite's glass desk, her laptop glowing in the dark. She hacked into Delgado's private email server, bypassing firewalls with the precision of a surgeon. The emails were damning. Delgado had taken bribes from real estate moguls to block black-owned businesses, and Vincent was his middleman, funneling cash for favors. One message, sent 2 days ago, instructed Delgado to handle the Coleman problem with maximum pressure. Lila's pulse raced, her fingers trembling with rage and triumph. She forwarded the emails to Carla Ruiz, a journalist friend, at the Miami Sun, who'd exposed corruption before. By noon, Carla's expose hit the internet, a blistering 2,000-word article titled, "Counselor's Corruption Targets Black Billionaire." It detailed Delgado's bribes, Vincent's role, and the account freeze as a racist vendetta. X lit up, hashtags like "Sao Justice for Lila" trending as thousands shared the story. Delgado, cornered, announced his resignation at a sweaty press conference, his tie askew, voice shaking. Lila's accounts were unfrozen within hours, her bank sending a curt email confirming regulatory compliance. She exhaled, the weight lifting as she hugged Maya and Ethan, their smiles tentative but real. The penthouse felt lighter, the skyline brighter, as if Miami itself had exhaled. They ordered pizza, a rare treat, and laughed for the first time in days, the cheesy aroma filling the suite. Lila believed she'd turned the tide, her tech-savvy and allies dismantling Vincent's grip. She planned to strengthen resort security, fire hostile staff, and return home, her empire intact. But as dusk settled, bathing the city in a 95-degree haze, an alarm blared through the resort speakers. Red lights flashed in the hallways, and a robotic voice announced a security lockdown due to a credible terrorist threat. Lila's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're not safe, Coleman." Her stomach dropped. She rushed to the window, seeing police vans and SWAT teams cordoning off the resort's palm-lined entrance. A news ticker on the lobby's massive screen below flashed her name, accusing her family of planning a cyber attack on Miami's infrastructure. The lie was absurd, but the timing was no coincidence. Vincent, she realized, had orchestrated this, his connections deeper. Then Delgado, his vengeance sharper than she'd imagined. Staff pounded on the penthouse door, demanding entry, their voices edged with panic or malice. Guests screamed in the halls, fleeing to exits that were already sealed. Lila grabbed her kids, their eyes wide with fear, and shoved essentials into a backpack. The lockdown wasn't about safety. It was a trap, painting her as a terrorist to justify her destruction. Her victory over Delgado, so hard-won, now felt like a cruel mirage, a fleeting high before Vincent's next blow. The resort, her own empire, had become a fortress against her, its marble floors and golden lights hiding a racist machine that wouldn't stop. Lila's mind raced, calculating escape routes. But the SWAT teams were closing in, their radios crackling below. She'd fought systems before, but this was a new beast, one that could crush her family before she could strike back. Hey, if you're raging at Vincent's lies, comment number 1 to stand with Lila's fight. If you think systemic racism, like this, needs to be called out, hit that like button and subscribe to catch every twist in this saga. Can Lila outsmart a city turned against her, or is Vincent's trap too tight? What's his next move? Lila Coleman crouched in the Sapphire Crown Resort's dimly lit maintenance tunnel, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The air was thick with the stench of oil and rust, and the narrow concrete walls seemed to close in, barely wide enough for her, Maya, and Ethan to squeeze through. Above, the blare of alarms and the thud of SWAT boots echoed, hunting them like prey. Vincent Harrow's fabricated terrorism charge had turned their vacation into a nightmare, painting Lila's family as threats to Miami's safety. The tunnels, flickering fluorescent lights cast shadows on Maya's wide eyes, her 16-year-old bravado cracking under the weight of fear. Ethan, 14, clutched his backpack, his knuckles pale against his dark skin. Lila's mind raced, her tech genius, now their only lifeline. She'd seen the SWAT team swarming the resort's palm-lined entrance from the penthouse window, their rifles glinting under floodlights, and knew they had minutes to escape. Vincent's trap was airtight, his connections with law enforcement deeper than she'd feared, twisting her triumph over Counselor Delgado into this deadly chase. The resort, her own empire, had betrayed her, its luxury a cruel facade for systemic racism that struck again and again. Lila pulled her phone, its screen glowing faintly, and accessed the resort's security system, her fingers flying over the interface she'd designed herself. Coleman Tech's software ran the resort's cameras, and with a few lines of code, she disabled the feeds, plunging the surveillance room into darkness. The SWAT team's radios crackled with confusion, buying her family a sliver of time. She led Maya and Ethan through the tunnel, their sneakers scraping against the gritty floor, until they reached a rusted hatch leading to a service alley. The humid 98-degree Miami night hit them like a wall as they emerged, the alley reeking of garbage and diesel. Sirens wailed 2 blocks away, but the camera blackout gave them a head start. Lila navigated them through Miami's back streets, weaving past neon-lit bars and palm-shadowed sidewalks, her heart aching at her kids' labored breathing. They crossed 5 miles, dodging police cruisers, until they reached a safe house, modest stucco bungalow owned by her old college friend Jamal Carter. The house, tucked behind a mango tree, smelled of cedar and safety, its living room lit by a single lamp. Jamal, a burly man with a warm smile, ushered them inside, offering water and blankets. Maya collapsed on a couch, her braids spilling over a cushion, while Ethan stared out the window, scanning for threats. Lila exhaled, her muscles unclenching for the first time in hours. The safe house felt like salvation, a chance to regroup, contact her legal team, and dismantle Vincent's lies. She believed they'd outrun the trap, her quick thinking saving them from arrest or worse. Jamal promised to arrange transport to Atlanta by morning, and Lila began drafting a statement to clear her name, her laptop humming on a wooden coffee table. But as midnight cloaked the city in a sticky haze, the roar of engines shattered the quiet. Headlights pierced the bungalow's curtains, and boots crunched on the gravel outside. Lila peered through a crack, her stomach plummeting. A dozen men in camouflage, armed with rifles and flashlights, surrounded the house, their faces twisted with hate. A pickup truck idled nearby, its bumper plastered with Confederate stickers, a chilling emblem of their intent. These weren't police. They were a racist militia, their presence reeking of Vincent's vengeance. Lila's mind flashed to his sly grin in the lobby, his ability to turn her victories to ash. He'd tracked them here. But how? The answer hit like a slap. A mole in her company, someone feeding him her moves. The militia leader, a grizzled man with a scar across his cheek, barked orders, his voice thick with slurs, calling Lila a danger who'd stolen the resort. The racism was raw, unfiltered, weaponized by Vincent's lies about her terrorism plot. Maya stifled a sob, and Ethan grabbed a kitchen knife, his hands shaking. Lila's chest burned with fury, not just at Vincent, but at the system that empowered him, amplifying stereotypes to justify violence against her family. She whispered to Jamal, who nodded, pointing to a back exit leading to a neighbor's yard. Lila shoved her kids toward it, her voice low but fierce, urging them to stay quiet. Jamal distracted the militia, banging on the front door and shouting, giving them a chance to slip out. They crawled through dew-soaked grass, the militia's flashlight sweeping inches away, and sprinted down a moonlit street, the humid air searing their lungs. Lila led them to a drainage ditch, hiding among reeds as the militia's trucks roared past, their shouts fading into the night. Her kids clung to her, their breaths ragged, and Lila's resolve hardened. Escaping the resort had felt like a triumph, a testament to her skill, but Vincent's militia ambush crushed that hope, proving his reach was a hydra, each head deadlier than the last. The safe house, meant to be their refuge, was now a trap, and the mole's betrayal meant nowhere was secure. Lila's mind churned, plotting their next move, but the city felt like a maze of enemies, its neon glow hiding predators. She'd fought Vincent's media lies and Delgado's corruption, but this was new territory, where racism didn't just exclude but hunted. Her kids' safety, her empire's survival, hung by a thread, and Vincent's shadow loomed larger, his next strike already in motion. They needed a new hiding spot, allies she could trust, but who could she turn to when her own company was compromised? The ditch's muddy water soaked her jeans, a stark contrast to the penthouse's luxury, and Lila knew the fight was far from over. Vincent had turned Miami against her, but she'd survived worse. She'd find the mole, expose his game, and protect her family no matter the cost. But as dogs barked in the distance, their howls cutting through the night, a chill gripped her. What had Vincent unleashed now? Lila Coleman huddled in the dimly lit basement of a Miami community center, the air heavy with the scent of old books and faint mildew. The concrete walls, plastered with faded posters of local heroes, offered a fragile sanctuary after their desperate flight from the militia ambush. Maya and Ethan sat close, their faces etched with exhaustion, the humid 97-degree night seeping through cracked windows. The center, a hub for South Miami's Black and Latino residents, buzzed with quiet defiance, its volunteers moving swiftly to shield Lila's family. A wiry woman named Teresa, with gray-streaked braids and a no-nonsense gaze, brought them blankets and lukewarm coffee, her calloused hands steady as she whispered assurances. Locals, alerted by the viral expose of Councilor Delgado's corruption, rallied around Lila, their voices a low hum of support in the cramped space. A retired teacher shared her phone, letting Lila call her cybersecurity team, while a young barber stood guard at the door, his eyes scanning the street. The community's warmth, a stark contrast to the Sapphire Crown Resort's icy rejection, wrapped Lila like a shield. She felt a flicker of hope, believing this haven, 3 miles from the militia's chaos, could protect them. But Vincent Harrow's shadow loomed, his militia attack proving he'd stop at nothing to destroy her. The mole in her company, the traitor who'd led those armed racists to Jamal's safe house, was her priority. Lila sat at a wobbly folding table, her laptop's glow illuminating her tense features. Using Coleman Tech's encrypted software, she traced recent data breaches, her fingers dancing across the keyboard with surgical precision. The trail led to her CFO, Marcus Vance, a man she'd trusted for a decade. His login had accessed sensitive files, leaking her location to an IP address tied to Vincent's network. The betrayal stung, sharper than the resort's lobby humiliation or the SWAT lockdown. Marcus, with his polished suits and easy laugh, had dined at her home, mentored Ethan in math, yet sold her out for Vincent's cash. Lila's jaw clenched, her rage tempered by resolve. She fired Marcus remotely, locking him out of all systems, and patched the breach, securing Coleman Tech's data. Her team confirmed the militia had backed off, their trucks vanishing into Miami's neon maze after losing her trail. Lila exhaled, the basement's stale air grounding her. She believed she'd regained control, her swift action cutting Vincent's lifeline to her inner circle. Maya, sketching in a donated notebook, offered a shy smile, while Ethan, nibbling a granola bar, seemed less haunted. Teresa and the volunteers planned to smuggle them to a new safe house at dawn, and Lila felt the tide turning. Her company was safe, the mole was gone, and this community's strength reminded her why she fought. She leaned back, the chair creaking, imagining a press conference to clear her name, her kids safe in Atlanta. But as the clock struck 5, the basement's steel door rattled under heavy fists. Shouts erupted outside, and floodlights pierced the windows, casting harsh beams across the room. Federal agents clad in black tactical gear stormed the center, their boots thundering on the linoleum. "Lila Coleman, you're under arrest for cyber-terrorism," barked a square-jawed agent, his gun trained on her. The volunteers froze, Teresa's coffee mug slipping from her hands, shattering on the floor. Maya gasped, clutching Ethan, whose eyes darted to Lila for answers. The charge was a lie, a recycled version of Vincent's terrorism smear, but its weight was crushing. The agents cuffed Lila, their grips bruising, and herded the volunteers into a corner, ignoring their protests. Lila's mind reeled, piecing together Vincent's play. He'd bribed a federal agent, someone with enough clout to issue a nationwide warrant, escalating his attack from local militias to the full force of the law. The community center, her refuge, was now a trap, its warmth snuffed out by systemic racism that twisted justice into a weapon. The agent's radios crackled with orders, mentioning a tip from an anonymous source, but Lila knew Vincent's fingerprints were all over it. His ability to manipulate federal power, even after Delgado's fall, was a gut punch. The volunteers' faces, filled with shock and betrayal, mirrored her own. They'd risked everything to protect her, only to see her dragged away. Lila's victory over Marcus, so hard won, felt like a cruel jest, a fleeting high before Vincent's deadlier strike. The agents shoved her toward a van parked on the center's cracked asphalt lot, the city's skyline mocking her from 7 miles away. Maya and Ethan, spared arrest but left with Teresa, screamed for her, their voices breaking through the dawn's haze. Lila's heart tore, her resolve tested as never before. The warrant accused her of hacking federal databases, a charge rooted in racist fears of her intellect, painting her as a black woman too smart, too powerful to be trusted. The federal escalation dwarfed the militia's violence, threatening not just her freedom, but her kids' future. As the van's doors slammed shut, the agent's smirk echoed Vincent's lobby grin, a reminder of his unrelenting reach. Lila's cuffs bit into her wrists, the metal cold against her skin, but her mind burned with plans. She'd exposed Delgado, outrun SWAT, survived a militia, and she'd beat this too. But the community center's betrayal, the scattering of her allies, left her alone, facing a system rigged to crush her. The van rumbled through Miami's waking streets, its heat already climbing, and Lila knew Vincent's next move would be even crueler. Her kids were vulnerable, her company exposed, and the federal warrant was a noose tightening around her legacy. She needed allies, evidence, a way to turn this trap against Vincent. But time was slipping. The city outside, with its glittering towers and hidden enemies, felt like a chessboard where Vincent held every piece. What was his endgame now? Lila Coleman sat in the back of a federal van, her wrists chafed by cold steel cuffs, the Miami sunrise glinting off skyscrapers 10 miles away. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of sweat and metal, as the vehicle rumbled toward the courthouse. Maya and Ethan, left with Teresa at the raided community center, were safe for now. But their screams still echoed in Lila's mind, a raw wound fueling her resolve. The federal warrant for cyber-terrorism, a lie spun by Vincent Harrow's bribed agent, had torn her from her kids, weaponizing her intellect against her. At 42, she'd built Coleman Tech into a cybersecurity empire, but to Vincent and his allies, she was just a black woman who'd risen too high, her success a threat to their world. The van's jolts mirrored her racing thoughts, each bump a reminder of the racist system that had humiliated her in the Sapphire Crown Resort's lobby, frozen her accounts, hunted her with SWAT, and ambushed her with militias. Vincent's latest blow, this federal arrest, dwarfed them all, a calculated strike to erase her legacy. But Lila wasn't done. As the van pulled into the courthouse's underground garage, its concrete walls looming like a fortress, she steeled herself. The arraignment was her chance, a public stage to expose Vincent's racism and the agent's corruption. The courtroom, a cavernous space with polished oak benches and a towering judge's dais, buzzed with reporters, their cameras flashing like lightning. Lila, in a wrinkled blazer from the community center, stood tall, her braids framing a face carved with defiance. The judge, a stern white woman with silver hair, read the charges, her voice flat, but Lila's focus was on the crowd. She requested to speak, her voice steady, cutting through the room's hum. What followed was a 5-minute speech that burned with truth, every word a dagger aimed at Vincent's lies. She detailed his lobby humiliation, his smear campaign, the militia attack, and the bribed agent's warrant, naming names with surgical precision. She spoke of her kids, Maya's courage and Ethan's quiet strength, and the community center's betrayal, tying it all to a system that punished black excellence. Her voice cracked only once, when she mentioned her mother's advice. Never let them dim your light. The courtroom was silent, reporters scribbling furiously, as her words, streamed live on X, racking up millions of views. Hashtags like #Lila Speaks Truth exploded, and strangers rallied online, sharing stories of their own battles with racism. The judge, visibly shaken, suspended the warrant pending investigation, citing irregularities. Lila's cuffs were removed, her wrists red but free, and she walked out to a cheering crowd, their signs bobbing in the 99-degree heat. She reunited with Maya and Ethan, their hugs fierce under the courthouse's marble columns, and believed she'd turned the tide. The public's support, a tidal wave of outrage and solidarity, felt like armor. Proof her fight wasn't alone. She planned to bolster Coleman Tech's security, sue the feds, and expose Vincent's network, her mind already mapping the next steps. But as night fell, cloaking Miami in a humid haze, Vincent struck back, his venom undimmed. Safe in a temporary shelter, a modest motel 6 miles from the courthouse, Lila scrolled through her phone, expecting messages of support. Instead, a breaking news alert froze her blood. A video, doctored but convincing, had gone viral, showing her attacking a police officer during the community center raid. The footage, grainy but damning, depicted her shoving an agent, her face twisted in anger, though she'd never touched anyone. X erupted, the same hashtags that uplifted her now mixed with Lila the Thug, fueled by racist trolls calling her violent, a stereotype as old as her fight. The motel's TV blared the clip on loop, pundits debating her true nature. Maya's eyes welled, and Ethan punched a pillow, his frustration raw. Lila's stomach churned, recognizing Vincent's hand. He'd edited body cam footage, likely through his law enforcement allies, to flip her victory into a new nightmare. The public's support wavered, some calling her speech a stunt, others demanding her rearrest. Worse, the video incited a mob, fueled by Vincent's lies and Miami's simmering tensions. As Lila packed their bags planning to relocate, car horns blared outside. A crowd of 50, mostly white men in trucker hats and work boots, gathered at the motel's parking lot, their shouts laced with slurs. They carried bats, flashlights, and signs reading "Coleman out." The motel manager, a nervous man with a patchy beard, begged Lila to leave, fearing damage. Windows shattered as rocks flew, one grazing Maya's arm, drawing blood. Lila's heart raced, her kid's safety now a live wire in her chest. She ushered them through a back exit, the mob's chants drowning out the city's hum, and they fled into a nearby alley, its asphalt slick with rain. The mob's violence, sparked by Vincent's fake video, was a new low, escalating from federal warrants to raw, racist rage. Lila's courthouse triumph so electric hours ago was ash, her public stand twisted into a trap. Ethan's limp from a twisted ankle slowed them, and Maya's bleeding arm needed care, hardening Lila's resolve. She vowed to destroy Vincent's empire, not just for her but for her kids, whose innocence was being stolen by this fight. The alley's shadows hid them, but the mob's headlights swept closer, their engines roaring like beasts. Lila's speech had shaken Vincent, but his counterattack was a masterstroke, turning her truth into a lie that could kill. Hey, if you're fired up by Lila's courage, comment #1 to cheer her on. If you're sick of lies like Vincent's, tearing down heroes, hit like and subscribe to follow this epic battle. Can Lila escape the mob and strike back? Or has Vincent's video sealed her fate? Lila Coleman crouched in the corner of a cavernous Miami warehouse, the air thick with dust and the tang of rusted metal. Forklifts loomed like silent giants, their shadows stretching across cracked concrete under a single flickering bulb. Maya and Ethan huddled close, their breath shallow, Ethan's ankle swollen from the motel mob's chaos. The warehouse, a friend's storage for restaurant supplies, was their latest hideout, 7 miles from the shattered windows of their last refuge. Lila's heart ached at her kids' drawn faces, Maya's bandaged arm a stark reminder of the rock that grazed her, Ethan's limp a wound from their desperate alley sprint. Vincent Harrow's doctored video, painting Lila as a violent thug, had unleashed that mob, turning her courthouse triumph into a fiery nightmare. The federal warrant, militia ambush, and media smears had all led here, to this cold, echoing space where safety felt like a cruel joke. But Lila, at 42, was no victim. Her cybersecurity empire, Coleman Tech, had toppled giants before, and Vincent, with his racist vendetta, was just another. The mob's slurs, echoing the Sapphire Crown Resort's lobby rejection, only fueled her fire. She set up her laptop on a crate, its screen casting a blue glow, and hacked into Vincent's financial records, her fingers a blur of precision. Years of tracing digital footprints gave her an edge, and within hours, she uncovered a gold mine. Bank statements showing Vincent had embezzled $20 million from the resort chain, funneling it to offshore accounts. Emails tied him to shady developers, trading favors for cash, the same network that had backed Councilor Delgado's corruption. Lila's pulse raced, her anger tempered by triumph. She sent the evidence to a national outlet, the American Beacon, via an encrypted link ensuring it couldn't be traced. By noon, the story broke. A scathing exposé titled, "Resort Manager's Millions Stolen from Miami's Jewel." It detailed Vincent's theft, his ties to Miami's elite, and his campaign against Lila, framing her as a scapegoat for his crimes. The article went viral, X lighting up with outrage, hashtags like Dr. Vincent the Thief drowning out the mob's lies. News vans swarmed the resort 8 miles away, their cameras capturing police escorting Vincent from his downtown condo, his face pale, hands cuffed. Lila watched the live stream on her phone, the warehouse's chill seeping into her bones, but her spirit soared. Maya high-fived Ethan, their smiles fragile but real, and Lila believed she'd landed a killing blow. Vincent's arrest, broadcast, to millions felt like justice, a reversal of the lobby humiliation that started this war. She planned to return to the resort, fire the remaining hostile staff, and rebuild, her kids safe at last. The warehouse, with its stacks of canned tomatoes and rice bags, seemed less oppressive, a temporary stop before victory. But as dusk painted, the city in a 100-degree haze, Vincent's vengeance roared back, undeterred by bars. Released on bail, his wealth and connections intact, he hired a hitman, a shadow named Kessler, known for leaving no trace. Lila, unaware, was syncing her laptop's data when her phone pinged with a Coleman Tech alert. An unauthorized drone had scanned the warehouse's perimeter. Her stomach dropped. She glanced at the skylight, spotting a faint red laser dot dancing on the wall, inches from Maya's head. Shouts erupted outside, a single voice barking orders in the dark. Lila yanked her kids behind a forklift, her mind racing. The hitman, tracked via Vincent's hacked emails, had found them. His precision, chilling. The warehouse's steel doors rattled, and a silenced gunshot pinged off a crate splintering wood. Lila's breath hitched, the mob's rocks now dwarfed by this lethal threat. She grabbed a crowbar, her tech skills useless against bullets, and led Maya and Ethan through a maze of pallets, their footsteps muffled by desperation. The hitman's boots echoed, his flashlight slicing the darkness, closing in. They reached a loading dock, the Miami docks sprawling beyond, their salty air a faint promise of escape. Lila's heart pounded as she faced Kessler, a wiry man with dead eyes, his gun trained on her. In a blur, she swung the crowbar, knocking the weapon free, its clatter lost in the dock's hum. Kessler lunged, but Ethan, limping but fierce, threw a crate, slowing him. They sprinted into the night, the hitman's curses fading, the dock's cranes looming like sentinels. Lila's chest burned, her kids' safety a razor's edge, but they'd escaped, her quick thinking saving them again. The warehouse meant to be their fortress was another trap, Vincent's reach defying his arrest. But as they hid in a dockside shed, its wooden walls creaking, a new blow landed. Lila's phone buzzed with a legal notice. Vincent's lawyer had filed a defamation lawsuit, accusing her of fabricating the embezzlement evidence, demanding $100 million, enough to bankrupt Coleman Tech. The lawsuit, filed in a Miami court known for favoring elites, was a cunning strike, exploiting systemic bias that doubted a black woman's truth. Lila's victory over Vincent's arrest, so electric, was now a fading spark, his hitman and legal warfare proving he'd fight to his last breath. The dock's fog rolled in, cloaking Miami's skyline, and Lila's resolve hardened. She'd survived the lobby, the militia, the feds, and now a killer. But this lawsuit threatened her. Empire's core, Maya and Ethan, shivering in the shed, looked to her, their trust unbroken, and Lila knew she'd fight on. Vincent thought he could outlast her, but he didn't know her strength. The city's pulse thrummed beyond, its dangers multiplying, and Lila braced for the next battle. How far would Vincent go to bury her? Lila Coleman sat at a chipped dining table in a cramped Miami apartment, the air heavy with the scent of damp plaster and instant noodles. The safe house, a third-floor walk-up 8 miles from the warehouse where they'd escaped a hitman, was a far cry from the Sapphire Crown Resort's glittering penthouse. Maya and Ethan, sprawled on a sagging couch, flipped through old magazines, their faces drawn, Ethan's ankle still tender. Maya's bandaged arm a faint scar of the mob's violence. The city's 100-degree heat seeped through thin walls, and Lila's laptop, perched on a wobbly stand, hummed with the weight of her fight. Vincent Harrow's defamation lawsuit, demanding $100 million for her false embezzlement expose, loomed like a guillotine over Coleman Tech. The hitman's laser dot, inches from Maya's head, still haunted her, a reminder of Vincent's lethal reach, even from a jail cell. His lawsuit, filed in a Miami court notorious for favoring white elites, was a masterstroke, exploiting a system that doubted a black woman's truth before hearing it. The racism she'd faced in the resort's lobby, now a distant spark, had ignited this inferno, from media smears to federal warrants to mob attacks. But Lila, 42 and forged in fire, refused to break. She hired Elena Torres, a shark of a lawyer with a track record of toppling corrupt tycoons, her sharp eyes glinting with hunger for the case. Elena's office, a sleek downtown loft 9 miles away, became Lila's war room. Together, they dug into Vincent's court filings, Lila's cybersecurity skills tracing digital breadcrumbs. Late at night, while the kids slept under a creaky ceiling fan, Lila hacked into a judge's private server, her fingers steady despite exhaustion. The data was explosive. Vincent had bribed 2 judges, funneling cash through shell companies to rig the lawsuit. One email, sent from Vincent's lawyer, promised a favorable ruling for a $500,000 payout. Lila's heart raced, her rage a tight coil as she shared the evidence with Elena. They filed a motion to dismiss, attaching the emails, and the courtroom showdown was electric. The judge, a grizzled man with a skeptical frown, faced a packed gallery, reporters scribbling. As Elena dismantled Vincent's case, she presented the bribery proof, her voice cutting like glass, and linked it to Vincent's embezzlement, tying his lawsuit to his vendetta against Lila. The gallery buzzed, X-posts erupting with "Wars Lila fights back," and the judge, cornered by the evidence, dismissed the case with a bang of his gavel. Cheers echoed, and Lila, in a borrowed blazer, felt the weight lift. Back at the apartment, she celebrated with Maya and Ethan, ordering takeout from a Cuban diner, the aroma of roasted pork filling the space. They laughed, Maya mimicking Elena's courtroom swagger, Ethan sketching a cartoon of Vincent in cuffs. Lila believed the worst was over, her legal victory a beacon after the hitman's terror. She planned to return to the resort, rebuild her empire, and heal her kids' scars, the city's skyline a promise of renewal. But as midnight draped Miami in a sticky haze, Vincent's vengeance roared back, his defeat only fuel for a darker fire. Now a fugitive, having fled bail, he leaked Lila's safehouse address to a white supremacist group, their online forums buzzing with hate. At 2 in the morning, a deafening blast shook the apartment, flames licking the windows as a firebomb shattered the night. Lila's scream woke Maya and Ethan, their eyes wide with terror. Smoke choked the room, the heat searing, and Lila grabbed her kids, shoving them toward a fire escape. The metal rungs burned her palms, but they slid down, landing in an alley, reeking of ash and gasoline. The building blazed, its windows popping like gunfire, and the supremacists' laughter echoed from the street, their silhouettes armed with bats. Lila's heart pounded, her kids' safety a fraying thread. The firebomb, a step beyond the hitman's bullet, was Vincent's cruelest strike, targeting her sanctuary with raw, racist violence. The police, arriving 20 minutes later, shrugged, their report citing insufficient evidence despite the group's blatant posts online. The systemic neglect, a mirror of the resort's staff turning away, crushed Lila's legal triumph, her victory in court now ashes like the apartment. Maya coughed, her lungs strained, and Ethan's limp worsened, his eyes hollow. Lila's resolve hardened, her anger a blade honed by loss. The safe house meant to be their shield was rubble, and the police's inaction proved Vincent's influence lingered, a ghost in Miami's power structure. They fled to a motel, its neon sign flickering, but Lila knew nowhere was safe. The lawsuit's dismissal had stung Vincent, but his escalation to arson showed a man unhinged, willing to burn her world to keep his. Her empire, her kids, her name were at stake, and the supremacists' attack, fueled by Vincent's leak, was winds a new low, dwarfing the mob's rocks and the hitman's gun. Lila's mind churned, plotting to expose Vincent's fugitive network, but the city felt like a minefield, its heat a constant threat. She'd survived the lobby, the feds, the militia, and now flames, but Vincent's next move loomed, a shadow she couldn't outrun. The motel's thin walls creaked, and Lila held her kids close, their trust her anchor. She'd fight on, but the cost was mounting and Vincent's endgame was clearer: total destruction. What horrors would he unleash next? Lila Coleman slipped through the back door of a rundown Miami print shop, the air sharp with ink and dust, its presses silent under the weight of a sweltering night. The shop, tucked 9 miles from the firebombed apartment, was a lifeline, part of an underground network of activists who'd answered her call. Maya and Ethan followed, their steps cautious, Maya's arms still tender, Ethan's limp a quiet testament to their relentless fight. The firebombing, orchestrated by Vincent Harrow's white supremacist allies, had reduced their safe house to ashes, the police's indifference a bitter echo of the Sapphire Crown Resort's lobby rejection. At 42, Lila bore the scars of Vincent's war. Media smears, federal warrants, militia ambushes, hitmen, and now arson, each blow rooted in a racism that saw her black billionaire status as a threat. The print shop's dim fluorescent lights flickered, casting shadows on stacks of flyers as a dozen activists gathered, their faces a mosaic of resolve. Javier, a lanky coder with a scar above his brow, handed Lila a burner phone, its screen already linked to a secure server. Aisha, a former union organizer with a voice like gravel, mapped out safe routes on a city grid. These were Miami's unsung warriors, bound by battles against the same system that empowered Vincent. Lila's heart swelled, their trust a balm after the community center's betrayal. She'd lost her mansion, her accounts, her safety. But here, in this ink-stained haven, she found allies who saw her truth. Using the shop's ancient computer, Lila broadcast Vincent's crimes on X, her words raw and unfiltered. She detailed his embezzlement, the bribed judges, the supremacist firebomb, linking each to his racist vendetta. Javier amplified the post, hacking algorithms to push it viral, while Aisha's contacts shared it across grassroots networks. By dawn, the campaign exploded, millions viewing Lila's video, their comments flooding with outrage and support. Hashtags like "Manine expose Vincent" surged, drowning out his doctored lies. Vincent's allies, from developers to politicians, distanced themselves, their social media accounts going dark as sponsors fled. Lila watched the analytics climb, the shop's humid air buzzing with hope. Maya sketched protest signs, her art fierce, while Ethan, usually reserved, helped Javier code a backup server. The activists planned a rally to pressure Miami's DA, and Lila believed she'd cornered Vincent, his empire crumbling under her light. The print shop, with its creaking floorboards and coffee stains, felt like a fortress, a place to rebuild. Her fight. She envisioned Vincent's arrest, her kids safe, her company restored, the resort a beacon of justice. But as noon baked the city in a 102-degree blaze, Vincent, a fugitive with nothing left, struck with chilling precision. Lila's phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number. "Say goodbye to Maya." Her blood froze. She scanned the hot shop, finding Maya gone, her sketchpad abandoned on a chair. Ethan's shout led her to a back window, where tire tracks scarred the alley's dirt. Vincent had kidnapped Maya, his message demanding Lila retract her accusations or lose her daughter forever. The activists rallied, Javier tracing the text to a burner phone, Aisha calling contacts for leads, but Lila's world narrowed to a single searing fear. Her 16-year-old, bold and bright, was in the hands of a monster who'd already burned her home. The kidnapping, a gut-wrenching escalation from the firebomb, weaponized Lila's identity as a black mother, exploiting her deepest vulnerability. The racism wasn't just systemic now. It was personal, a blade to her heart. Lila's mind raced, her tech skills kicking in. She hacked traffic cameras, spotting a black van speeding toward an abandoned hotel 12 miles away, its neon sign long faded. With Javier and Ethan, she raced across Miami, the city's humid pulse a cruel backdrop. The hotel, a crumbling relic of the 80s, loomed under a stormy sky, its windows boarded, walls tagged with graffiti. Lila slipped inside, her flashlight cutting through dust-choked halls, Ethan's limp slowing him, but his eyes fierce. They found Maya tied in a penthouse suite, her wrists raw, Vincent's silhouette pacing nearby. Lila's voice, steady but lethal, demanded he step back. Vincent, gaunt and wild-eyed, lunged, but Javier tackled him, and Lila freed Maya, their hug a lifeline in the chaos. They fled as Vincent broke free, his screams echoing in the empty hotel. The rescue, a desperate triumph, felt like salvation. But Vincent's escape, slipping into Miami's shadows, was a dagger. In the shop, Lila held Maya, her sobs shaking them both, but a note found in Maya's pocket chilled her. One final blow, Coleman. Vincent's promise, scrawled in jagged ink, swore to destroy her legacy, a threat beyond kidnapping, beyond fire. The activists' faces, once hopeful, now mirrored her dread. Her viral campaign, a beacon hours ago, was a fleeting victory, Vincent's cruelty proving he'd never stop. The print shop's walls, once a shield, felt fragile, Miami's skyline a taunt. Lila's fight had saved Maya, but the cost was climbing, and Vincent's next strike loomed, a specter she couldn't name. Hey, if you're inspired by Lila's unbreakable spirit, comment #1 to stand with her. If you're furious at Vincent's relentless hate, hit like and subscribe to follow this heart-pounding saga. What's Vincent's final blow, and can Lila stop it before it breaks her? Lila Coleman hunched over a battered desk in a Miami storage unit, the air thick with the musty scent of cardboard and motor oil. The unit, 10 miles from the print shop where she'd rescued Maya, was a claustrophobic refuge, its metal walls rattling in the humid 104-degree night. Maya and Ethan sat on a pile of moving blankets, their faces pale, Maya's wrists still raw from Vincent Harrow's kidnapping, Ethan's ankles swollen from their endless flights. The note Vincent left, promising a final blow, haunted Lila, its jagged ink a taunt that followed them from the firebombed apartment to the activist network's crumbling haven. At 42, Lila had endured Vincent's racist gauntlet, the Sapphire Crown Resort's lobby humiliation, media smears, federal warrants, militia ambushes, hitmen, and arson, each rooted in a system that loathed her black billionaire status. Her cybersecurity empire, Coleman Tech, was her sword, but Vincent's relentless attacks threatened to shatter it. The storage unit's single bulb flickered, casting shadows on crates of old files, as Lila's laptop hummed, her last link to the fight. She scoured Vincent's digital trail, her fingers trembling with exhaustion, but guided by 20 years of tech mastery. An encrypted email, buried in a dark web server, revealed his final blow. Vincent, now a fugitive, had sold doctored evidence to Nexus Corp, a rival tech firm, accusing Coleman Tech of industrial espionage. The evidence, faked server logs and forged contracts, claimed Lila had stolen Nexus Corp's patents to build her empire. Nexus Corp filed a lawsuit, demanding seizure of Coleman Tech's assets, a $3 billion death sentence. Lila's stomach churned, the racism palpable. Vincent's lie painted her as a thief, a stereotype weaponizing her success against her. The lawsuit, backed by Nexus Corp's elite lawyers, was a corporate lynching, designed to erase her legacy where militias and firebombs failed. Lila refused to fold. She rallied her team, working through the night to debunk the evidence, her voice steady on encrypted calls. Nexus Corp's suit was set for a public hearing, and Lila saw her chance. She organized a live-streamed conference from the storage unit, using a borrowed webcam and a shaky internet signal. At noon, with Miami sweltering, she went live on X, her face framed by the unit's peeling paint. 1 million viewers tuned in, their comments a roar of support. Lila dismantled the espionage claims, presenting Coleman Tech's clean server logs, time-stamped patents, and whistleblower testimony from a Nexus Corp insider. Her words were fire, exposing Vincent's hand and Nexus Corp's greed, linking the suit to his racist vendetta. She showed the kidnapping scars on Maya's wrists, her voice breaking, and Ethan's quiet nod, a silent vow of strength. The stream exploded, hashtags like Mom, Lila Unbroken trending globally, and Nexus Corp's stock plummeted as investors fled. By dusk, the firm withdrew the lawsuit, issuing a meek apology, and Coleman Tech's assets were safe. Lila hugged her kids, their relief palpable in the unit's stifling air, the scent of victory mingling with sweat. She believed she'd neutralized Vincent, his corporate allies crushed by her truth. The storage unit, with its stacks of dusty boxes, felt like a command center, a place to plan her return to the resort, to rebuild her empire and heal her family. She envisioned a press tour, lawsuits against Vincent's network, and a safe home for Maya and Ethan, the city's skyline a beacon of hope. But as midnight cloaked Miami in a sticky haze, Vincent's shadow struck again. His fugitive status no barrier to his hate. He hacked the Sapphire Crown Resort's systems, seizing control of its digital billboards and speakers. Across the city, from the resort's beachfront to downtown plazas, a manifesto blared, Vincent's voice distorted but venomous. It accused Lila of ruining Miami, stealing jobs and corrupting its culture, a dog whistle laced with racist tropes. The manifesto looped, its lies broadcast to thousands, and X posts surged with "Find Lila out," fueled by bots and bigots. The hack incited protests, a crowd of 200 gathering outside Lila's temporary office, a leased downtown suite 12 miles away. The mob, wielding signs and megaphones, chanted slurs, their anger a mirror of the motel mob but larger, more organized. Lila, Maya, and Ethan, working late on legal filings, were trapped inside, the suite's glass walls vibrating with the crowd's roar. Security guards fled, outnumbered, and the mob's bricks cracked the windows, shards glinting on the carpet. Lila's heart raced, her kids' safety a fraying thread. The hack, a leap beyond the kidnapping, showed Vincent's tech savvy, a dark mirror of her own skills. It turned Miami against her, exploiting fears of black success to fuel chaos. Her conference triumph, a global rallying cry, was now a fading echo, Vincent's manifesto drowning her truth in noise. The office, meant to be her foothold, was a cage, its sleek desks and city views mocking her plight. Maya's eyes darted, her courage shaken, and Ethan gripped a chair, his limp a constant ache. Lila's resolve hardened, her anger a furnace. She'd saved Coleman Tech, but Vincent's protest was a citywide trap, dwarfing the supremacists' flames. The mob's chants grew louder, their headlights flooding the suite, and Lila knew escape was impossible without a fight. She'd survived. The lobby, the feds, the hitman, and now this. But Vincent's hack proved he'd weaponize anything, even her city, to break her. The storage unit's victory, so hard-won, was a cruel mirage, and the protests outside were his checkmate. Lila's mind churned, plotting a counter-hack, but the mob's bricks flew faster, and her kid's fear was a blade to her soul. City's pulse thrummed, its dangers multiplying, and Vincent's manifesto looped, a siren call to her destruction. Could she outwit his chaos before it consumed them? Lila Coleman stood in the besieged downtown office, the Miami skyline a jagged silhouette against a 105-degree dawn. The suite's glass walls shuddered as bricks from Vincent Harrow's incited mob cracked the panes, their slurs a venomous roar piercing the humid air. Maya and Ethan crouched behind a mahogany desk, Maya's wrists still scarred from her kidnapping, Ethan's swollen ankle throbbing from their endless escapes. The mob, 200 strong, fueled by Vincent's hacked manifesto accusing Lila of ruining Miami, was a beast born of racism, its roots in the Sapphire Crown Resort's lobby rejection now a citywide inferno. At 42, Lila had battled Vincent's gauntlet. Smears, warrants, militias, hitmen, firebombs, and corporate plots, each strike exploiting her black billionaire status as a threat. The office, leased as a foothold after the storage unit's triumph over Nexus Corp, was now a trap, its sleek monitors and leather chairs mocking her plight. The mob's megaphones blared, echoing Vincent's lies about her stealing jobs, a racist trope that turned neighbors into enemies. Lila's heart pounded, her kids' fear a knife in her chest, but her mind stayed sharp, honed by 20 years at Coleman Tech's helm. She peered through a shattered window, spotting protest leaders, a mix of local agitators and out-of-town instigators, their faces twisted with hate. Security guards had fled, and police sirens, faint 10 blocks away, promised no help, their inaction a grim echo of the firebombing's aftermath. Lila knew Vincent, a fugitive, had orchestrated this chaos, his hack a desperate bid to crush her live-streamed victory. But she saw a crack in his plan. The mob wasn't unified, some locals hesitating, their signs wavering. She grabbed a megaphone from the office's emergency kit, its weight grounding her, and stepped to the balcony, glass crunching under her sneakers. Her voice, steady but fierce, cut through the din, addressing the crowd 12 stories below. She exposed Vincent's manifesto as a lie, detailing his embezzlement, the kidnapping, the firebomb, and his racist vendetta, her words raw with truth. She named allies, like the print shop activists, and shared Maya's courage, Ethan's resilience, humanizing her fight. Locals in the crowd, faces softening, lowered their signs, some shouting back in support. Lila's tech team, patched in via her phone, broadcast her speech on X, the stream hitting 2 million views. Hashtags like Lila Unites surged, and the mob fractured, instigators retreating as locals dispersed, their anger diffused. By noon, the street cleared, the office's broken windows a testament to the storm's end. Lila hugged Maya and Ethan, their relief a fragile warmth in the suite's wreckage. She believed she'd restored peace, her words turning Vincent's chaos against him. The city's skyline, glittering beyond, felt like a promise of renewal, and Lila planned to strengthen her legal team, rebuild the resort, and shield her kids. The office, though battered, was a victory, a place to regroup and strike back. But as dusk cloaked Miami in a sticky haze, Vincent's shadow loomed, his defeat only fuel for a darker fire. A rogue police captain, Marcus Reddick, a burly man, with ties to Vincent's network, planted evidence framing Lila for orchestrating the protests. At 6, as Lila sifted through glass shards, planning a press release, sirens wailed, and SWAT burst into the suite, their rifles trained on her. Reddick, his badge glinting, accused her of inciting a riot, producing doctored texts sent from her phone to protest leaders. The charge, a twisted mirror of Vincent's manifesto, was a lie, but its weight was crushing. Lila was cuffed, in front of Maya and Ethan, their screams tearing through her, and Reddick vowed to make an example of her, his sneer echoing Vincent's lobby grin. The arrest, a leap beyond the manifesto's chaos, weaponized racist policing, painting Lila as a black instigator to justify her destruction. The office, her hard-won stronghold, became a prison, its shattered glass a cruel irony. Maya and Ethan, left with a shaken intern, clung to each other, their trust in Lila absolute but fragile. Lila's speech, a unifying force hours ago, was now a fading echo, Vincent's frame-up twisting her truth into a noose. The SWAT van rumbled through Miami's neon streets, its heat searing, and Lila's mind raced. Her lawyer, Elena Torres, was her lifeline, and as she sat in the van, wrists aching, Elena's team uncovered Reddick's ties to Vincent, emails proving he'd taken bribes to plant the evidence. By midnight, Elena's motion hit the court, and a judge, swayed by the viral speech and public outcry, released Lila citing tainted evidence. She reunited with her kids at a safe house, their hugs fierce, but Reddick's smirk as she left the precinct chilled her. Elena's evidence, a hard-won victory, felt hollow, as Reddick hinted at Vincent's final trap, a plan targeting Maya and Ethan. The arrest, a brutal escalation from the protests, showed Vincent's grip on law enforcement, a system that saw Lila's strength as a crime. Her kids, safe for now, were vulnerable, and the safe house, a nondescript bungalow 11 miles away, felt like a ticking clock. Lila's mind churned, plotting to expose Reddick's network, but Vincent's trap loomed, a specter aimed at her heart. The city's pulse thrummed, its dangers multiplying, and Lila braced for a fight she couldn't yet see. The skyline, once a beacon, now hid predators, and Vincent's shadow promised a reckoning. What was his final trap, and could she protect her kids before it struck? Lila Coleman gripped the steering wheel of a borrowed sedan, tearing through Miami's rain-slicked streets, the city's neon glow blurred by a 106-degree storm. Maya and Ethan sat in the back, their faces taut, Maya's wrists scarred from her kidnapping, Ethan's ankle throbbing from their endless flights. Vincent Harrow's latest threat, a trap targeting her kids, had lured them to a remote beach house 15 miles from the safe house where Lila was released from her framed arrest. Captain Reddick's parting smirk, hinting at Vincent's plan to stage Maya and Ethan's accidental deaths, was a blade to Lila's heart. At 42, she'd endured Vincent's racist crucible, the Sapphire Crown Resort's lobby humiliation, smears, warrants, militias, hitmen, firebombs, lawsuits, and protests, each rooted in a system that saw her black billionaire status as a crime. The sedan's engine roared, windshield wipers slapping as Lila's mind raced, her cybersecurity genius now a weapon to save her family. The beach house, a weathered clapboard structure perched on a dune, loomed through the downpour, its windows dark, waves crashing below. Lila's phone, patched to Coleman Tech's servers, confirmed Vincent's presence, his burner phone pinging inside. The trap was clear. Vincent, a fugitive, planned to kill her kids and frame it as a drowning, his final blow to break her. The racism wasn't just systemic. It was a personal vendetta, targeting her motherhood to shatter her soul. Lila parked a half-mile away, the storm's wind howling, and led Maya and Ethan through sodden sand, their sneakers sinking. The beach house's porch creaked, its door ajar, and Lila's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing a living room reeking of mildew and salt. Vincent stood in the shadows, gaunt and wild-eyed, a pistol glinting in his hand. Maya gasped, and Ethan froze, but Lila's voice was steel, demanding he drop the gun. Vincent ranted, his voice a snarl, accusing her of stealing his resort, his life, his city, each word dripping with the same racism that sparked this war in the lobby. Lila's heart pounded, but her tech skills were her edge. She'd rigged her phone to livestream, broadcasting Vincent's words to X, her team amplifying the feed. 2 million viewers watched as Vincent confessed, admitting the embezzlement, the firebomb, the kidnapping, and this trap, his hatred laid bare. His pistol wavered, and Lila lunged, knocking it free, the weapon skidding across warped floorboards. Maya and Ethan tackled him, their courage ablaze, and Lila pinned Vincent, her knee on his chest, until sirens wailed outside. Police, alerted by the live stream, swarmed the house, cuffing Vincent as he spat curses, his empire in ruins. The public's reaction was seismic, X flooding with fire when Vincent falls, millions demanding justice. Lila hugged her kids, their sobs mingling with the rain, believing she'd won. The beach house, a death trap, became her triumph, Vincent's confession a key to her freedom. She envisioned rebuilding the resort, suing his allies, and healing her family. The storm's end, a promise of peace. The police escorted them to a precinct 12 miles away where Vincent was booked, his mugshot plastered online. Lila's livestream, a desperate gambit, had turned his trap against him, her truth shattering his lies. But as dawn broke, the sky clearing to a searing heat, Captain Reddick, loyal to Vincent's network, struck a final blow. At the precinct, as Lila gave her statement, Reddick cornered her, his bulk filling the doorway. He revealed a plot to destroy Coleman Tech's servers, erasing her company's data, patents, contracts, everything, in a cyber attack set to launch that night. His smirk was a mirror of Vincent's lobby grin, a reminder of the system that empowered them. The attack, a leap beyond the beach house trap, aimed to obliterate Lila's legacy, a racist erasure of her black-built empire. Reddick's team had planted malware, he boasted, and her release was a ruse to let it run. Lila's stomach dropped, her victory over Vincent a cruel mirage. The precinct's fluorescent lights buzzed, its coffee-stained walls closing in, and Maya and Ethan, waiting in a nearby room, were unaware of the new threat. The livestream had saved them, but Coleman Tech, her life's work, was on the brink. The beach house's triumph, so electric, was now a fading spark, Reddick's plot dwarfing Vincent's gun. Lila's mind churned, her tech skills her only shield. She needed access to her servers, allies to trace the malware. But Reddick's presence meant the precinct was hostile ground. The city's skyline, visible through a window, glittered with menace, its towers hiding enemies. Maya's courage, Ethan's quiet strength, fueled her. But the cost of this fight, her kids' safety, her empire's survival, was crushing. Vincent's arrest had shaken his network, but Reddick's loyalty proved it wasn't dead. Lila's resolve hardened, her anger a furnace. She'd survived the lobby, the feds, the firebombs, and now this. But Reddick's cyber attack was a new beast, threatening to erase her mark on the world. The precinct's clock ticked, each second a step toward disaster, and Lila knew she had hours to act. She'd saved her kids, but her legacy hung by a thread, and Reddick's smirk promised her destruction. The city's pulse thrummed, its dangers unrelenting, and Lila braced for a fight against time. Could she stop Reddick's attack before it ended everything? Lila Coleman stood in a Miami precinct, the air sharp with coffee and disinfectant, as Captain Reddick's cyber attack loomed over Coleman Tech's servers. With Maya and Ethan safe, she hacked Reddick's device, redirecting his malware to expose his corruption live on X, his bribes to Vincent Harrow unmasked. 5 million viewers watched, and Reddick was arrested, his smirk gone. Lila rebuilt the Sapphire Crown Resort as a community hub, its lobby now a beacon of justice. But a cryptic email hit her inbox, revealing Vincent as a pawn in a vast racist network still hunting her. At 42, Lila vowed to fight on, her legacy unbreakable, Miami's skyline a challenge. What was this network's next move? The saga of Lila Coleman and hotel manager kicks out black family, then they buy the entire resort, is a powerful testament to resilience against systemic racism. Lila, a black billionaire, faced relentless attacks, humiliation, smears, warrants, militias, hitmen, firebombs, lawsuits, and protests, each rooted in a system that vilified her success. Her journey teaches us that racism isn't just personal prejudice, it's a network of power, from Vincent Harrow's lobby rejection to Captain Reddick's cyber attack, designed to erase black excellence. Yet Lila's strength, forged through tech mastery and unyielding love for Maya and Ethan, shows that courage can shatter even the deepest conspiracies. Her live-streamed victory, exposing Vincent's confession, and her outsmarting of Reddick highlight the power of truth amplified by community. The final twist, revealing Vincent as a pawn in a larger racist network, underscores a harsh reality. Individual wins don't dismantle systemic hate. We must stay vigilant, uniting against injustice, as Lila did with her activist allies. Her rebuilding of the Sapphire Crown Resort as a community hub inspires us to transform spaces of exclusion into beacons of inclusion. This story challenges us to confront racism in our own lives, to speak out, and to support those fighting for justice. Lila's legacy is a call to action. Never let hate dim your light. So what's one way you've seen or fought systemic racism in your community? Comment below, hit like, subscribe, and share to amplify these racism stories. Thank you for joining Lila's fight. We wish you strength to stand tall against injustice.